Okay, so let's picture this. Kerala. You've got these lush green landscapes, everything's still wet from the monsoon rains, and the air, it's just buzzing. You can almost hear the rhythm of the snake boat races, smell the jasmine flowers. Homes are just bursting with color. These amazing flower carpets called pukulams right on the doorstep. Families are getting together for these incredible feasts, the sadhyas all served on banana leaves, streets filled with laughter, traditional dances. Onam, it's more than just a harvest festival, right? It marks the end of the monsoon, celebrates the rice harvest. It's like the cultural heartbeat of the whole state. But now, I need you to switch gears completely. Think about just one house. A modest, government-provided house in Nidhamgad, near Thiruvananthapuram, the capital. Here, there are no festivities. None at all. No flowers, no smell of sweet payasam cooking. For this particular home, Onam isn't about joy. It's this raw reminder of a wound, one that gets torn open every single year, for 2 decades now. Okay, so let's unpack this. This deep dive is really about where this vibrant cultural celebration crashes into a really profound personal tragedy.
And the insight here, maybe it isn't just the irony, a festival about equality versus injustice. It's also about how these powerful cultural stories, well, they can sometimes mask the tough realities if we aren't looking closely. We're going to explore what happens when the ideals of a festival meet the harshness of justice. Denied. To really get this contrast, let's start with Onam itself. So what's the story behind Onam? Why are themes like prosperity, equality so absolutely central to it all?
Well, it's fascinating, really. Onam's roots go way back into Hindu mythology. It's all centered around King Mahabali. Now, Mahabali, he was this wise, super generous Asura, King Asuras being this ancient group, sometimes seen as demons, but here he's revered. A really benevolent ruler in prehistoric Kerala, his kingdom, legendary, like no poverty, no discrimination, zero injustice. People absolutely loved him. But his power apparently made the gods a bit nervous. So Lord Vishnu shows up as the Vamana avatar, basically, Vishnu in the form of a dwarf. Vamana goes to Mahabali, asks for just 3 paces of land. Seems simple enough. Mahabali, being generous, says yes. Then Vamana just expands, like cosmically huge, covers the earth in 1 step, the heavens in the second. For the 3rd step, Mahabali incredibly humbly offers his own head. Vishnu, impressed by this devotion, grants him a boon. He can visit his people, his subjects, once every year. And that visit is what everyone celebrates as Onam. It's his homecoming, yeah, symbolizing prosperity from the harvest, equality, good governance, all those ideals.
That's quite the origin story, a powerful foundation. So how does all that translate into the actual celebrations? What does Onam look like, feel like, for people in Kerala today?
Oh, it's spectacular, really. Think of it like a massive family reunion combined with, I don't know, Thanksgiving and a huge cultural carnival, all rolled into one. It goes on for 10 days, starting with Atham and ending on Thiruvarnam, which is the main day. People clean their homes, top to bottom. Everyone gets new clothes called onakoti, and they make those incredible pukulams we talked about.
Full flower patterns.
Exactly, those geometric designs at the entrance welcoming Mahabali. And the food, the sagya. It's this amazing vegetarian feast, sometimes up to 26 different dishes, rice, sambar, avial, thoran, pickles, everything. And it's eaten together communally. That really emphasizes the unity aspect.
And the games.
Oh, yeah. The Valamkali, the snake boat races, you see these huge boats on the backwaters, hundreds of rowers moving perfectly in sync. It's all about teamwork. And then there's Pulakali, the tiger dance, men painted like tigers dancing to drums. It's fun, energetic. It's really a time when, ideally, social barriers just dissolve, reflecting that Mahabali ideal of equality for everyone.
It sounds genuinely wonderful, a really unifying time. But against this backdrop of celebration, of justice as an ideal, what happened back in 2005? What shattered Onam for one family so completely? For Padmavathi Amma, that message of equality. It must feel incredibly cruel. It was 2005. Carol is buzzing with her own preparations. Her son, Udayakumar, he was 26, a scrap dealer, just trying to make a living. He was out with his friend Suresh Kumar near a park in Thiruvananthapuram Street, Kandaswaram Park. Udayakumar had 4,000 rupees on him, money he'd earned. And part of that, 1,000 rupees, his mother had given him, specifically for new Onam clothes. Then police from the fort station detained them, said they suspected them of theft. Just seemed like a routine stop, maybe, but what came next was, well, anything but routine.
What came next was horrific. Just horrific. Allegations started flying almost immediately. Brutal torture inside the police station. Udayakumar was allegedly beaten severely. leading to massive internal injuries. They rushed him to the medical college hospital there in Thiruvananthapuram, but he died that same night. And the postmortem report, it was absolutely damning. It listed multiple injuries totally consistent with torture. It directly contradicted what the police initially said, that maybe he got sick suddenly or there was some accident. The report made it pretty clear what likely happened.
Just try to imagine that evening. For his mother, Padmavathi Amma, waiting at home. Maybe expecting him back on his cycle, maybe with some small treat for the festival. And instead, news comes. First, he's been arrested. Then, he's dead. She was an illiterate woman, worked as a maid at school. She remembers the shock so vividly. Her teachers and the police took her to the mortuary, seeing her son's body, battered like that. She apparently just cried out, "Who could do this to my son? He never harmed anyone." Called out to Bhagavathi Amma, a local goddess, or just pure despair. It's a question that's basically defined her life for 20 years now. What kind of journey did she even start? Trying to get answers, trying to get justice.
Her fight for justice started, well, immediately, right after his death. At first, the local police looked into it, but there was a huge public outcry. People suspected a cover-up. So the case got handed over to the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, in 2007. And for the next decade, her life was consumed by this. Countless trips to court, often walking or taking the bus, sometimes going without food, apparently. She was living off a tiny old-age pension and maybe some interest from compensation the state government gave her, about 2 lakh rupees. It's poignant, isn't it? She doesn't keep photos of him out, but she has a pair of his old clothes locked away safely in an almirah, like a metal cabinet, just these tangible things left of him.
Her determination is just incredible. 13 years, and it seemed like finally maybe it paid off. What happened in that first trial?
That's right. 13 incredibly long years later, there was a breakthrough. The trial finished up in the special CBI court in Thiruvananthapuram in 2018, and 5 policemen were convicted. 2 constables, K. Udayakumar and SV Srikumar, actually got death sentences for murder, which is, pretty rare, a very strong judgment. 3 others, E.K. Sabu, T.K. Haridas, and Ajith Kumar, they got 3 years for tampering with evidence, other charges. The court didn't mince words, called the torture barbaric, talked about beatings with iron pipes, rollers, things that caused the fatal injuries. For Padmavathi Amma, after all that time, it must have felt like validation, like her faith in the system, even without any formal education herself, had finally been rewarded.
A death sentence. That's huge. But then justice proved fleeting, didn't it? That conviction didn't stand. What happened?
Yeah, tragically, that glimmer of hope just didn't last. Very recently, just a few days ago, actually, August 27th, 2025, the Kerala High Court Division Bench acquitted all 5 of them. They overturned the 2018 convictions completely.
Why? On what grounds?
They cited things like insufficient evidence, problems with the CBI's investigation, procedural lapses, basically. Said some witness testimonies weren't reliable, that proper protocols weren't followed. For Padmavathi Amma, it was crushing. She reportedly said, "I must start all over again." Just that mix of resignation and maybe still determination. Her brother, Mohan, he lives nearby, checks on her. He echoed that feeling, saying no family should have to go through this for so long.
So what now? Is that the end of the road?
Well, the CBI says they plan to appeal to the Supreme Court, but for now, yes, she's facing the agony of starting this fight all over again. And the insight here, perhaps, is that a legal win isn't always the same as lasting justice, is it? The system, even when it seems to work, can be fragile, vulnerable to these technical challenges years later.
So, stepping back from Padmavathi Amma's specific story, though it's so powerful, what does this tell us about the bigger picture in India? Because Udayakumar's death, sadly, wasn't a one-off incident, was it? Tell us about custodial deaths more broadly.
No, sadly, it's not isolated at all. It's, frankly, a national crisis. Custodial deaths are a huge problem in India's law enforcement system. The numbers are just staggering. On average, something like 5 people die in custody every single day across the country. In 2022 alone, nearly 2,000 prisoners died while in judicial custody. Over 150 of those deaths were classified as unnatural. And deaths in police custody, often linked to torture or beatings or just neglect, are a major part of that. What's really disturbing, too, is who the victims usually are. It disproportionately affects the marginalized poor people, lower castes, religious minorities, anyone without connections or influence. Even in Kerala, a state famous for its literacy and called God's own country, they reported 16 custodial deaths between 2016 and 2024. The insight, I think, is that despite India's democratic ideals on paper, there's this almost invisible layer of society that faces a totally different, often brutal reality when they encounter the state's power.
16 deaths just in Kerala in recent years. That's shocking. And this recent acquittal in Udayakumar's case, it sounds like it echoes other historical cases in Kerala too, exposing these deep flaws in the system.
Absolutely. It really does raise that question. Why does this keep happening? You can look way back, like the Rajan case during the emergency in 1976. P. Rajan was a student arrested, accused of being an Naxalite, tortured to death in police custody, his body never found. That case became this huge symbol of state overreach, eventually led to the chief minister resigning.
And more recently.
More recently, yeah. Remember Srijit's protest in 2017? His brother died in police custody in Vapuja. Srijit sat protesting outside the Kerala Secretariat for over 700 days straight, just demanding a CBI investigation. Remarkable persistence. Then you have other cases just in the last few years, 2021 deaths of a Muslim fish vendor, a Dalit beautician, also in Kerala, again highlighting who often bears the brunt. And nationally, people might remember the Jairaj Benix case in 2020, the father and son who died after alleged torture in Thoothukudi, Tamil Nadu. That caused massive outrage. There's also the Sampath case in Kerala back in the 80s. It's not just isolated incidents, it's a pattern. Suggests the problem is systemic, not just a few bad apples.
It sounds like the system itself might be part of the problem, built on old structures. But surely there have been efforts to modernize, to bring in accountability. Weren't there court rulings, guidelines?
That's a really crucial point. A lot of India's policing framework still rests on colonial-era laws, like the Indian Police Act of 1861. That was designed more for control, for suppression, not really for public service as we think of it now. Now, the Supreme Court did try to address this. The big one was the D.K. Basu case back in 1996. It laid down really important guidelines.
Like what kind of things?
Things like police must inform relatives when someone's arrested, arrestees have to get medical exams, arrests need to be properly recorded, basic rights, really. And the NHRC, the National Human Rights Commission, they also have directives. Custodial deaths have to be reported within 24 hours. There must be a magisterial inquiry.
So the rules are there.
The rules are there, on paper. But implementation, that's where it often breaks down. There's a 2025 report, the Global Torture Index. It actually classified India as high risk for torture. It cited widespread brutality, misuse of certain laws like the UAPA, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which gets criticized for being too broad, and just depressingly low conviction rates for police officers who commit abuses. So the insight maybe is that the legal framework exists, but there's this huge gap between the law on the books and what happens on the ground. That gap allows these abuses to continue.
Okay, so if the problems are known, the rules exist, but they aren't working. What are the solutions being proposed? What would it actually take to fix this, to stop these tragedies?
Well, solutions are being discussed constantly, but getting them implemented consistently with real political will, that's the challenge. Experts talk about needing comprehensive police reforms, things like genuinely independent oversight bodies, so police aren't just investigating themselves. Proper anti-torture legislation is key. India signed the UN Convention Against Torture, but still hasn't ratified it into domestic law. Better training for officers, focusing on human rights, a real shift towards community policing, building trust, not just enforcing laws.
Weren't there directives about complaints authorities?
Yes, the Prakash Singh judgment back in 2006. It directed states to set up police complaints authorities to independently investigate misconduct. But many states have been slow to actually do that effectively. And you see courts pushing back, too, like a recent Madras High Court ruling, 2025. It condemned torture, calling it more brutal than murder, really pushing for stricter accountability.
What about practical measures?
Things like body cameras for officers are often mentioned, regular psychological checks for police, public awareness campaigns so people know their rights. And in a state like Kerala, with such high literacy, 96%, maybe more community involvement could work. Village committees, maybe even apps to report misconduct, trying to bridge that gap between the public and the police.
At the end of the day, though, we have to come back to the human cost, to Padmavathi Amma, living alone. She's apparently faced harassment threats over the years. There was even this chilling incident where a policeman came to her house pretending he wanted to rent it, clearly trying to intimidate her. But her resilience is just incredible. She said something like, "God saved me, I have nothing more to lose." Her story, it's heartbreaking, but it reflects what so many mothers, so many families across India are going through, often silently, fighting these huge systems. So as Kerala gets ready for Onam again in 2025, thinking about King Mahabali, justice, equality, Padmavathi Anna's quiet fight, her refusal to give up, it stands in such stark contrast, doesn't it? Her fight isn't over. The CBI is planning that Supreme Court appeal. There's still a chance, maybe, for some kind of final closure.
But her story, it's more than just one case, isn't it? It really forces a deeper look, a societal reflection. How can a country aiming for global leadership still have these dark shadows in its justice system? And what does it mean for you, listening to this? Knowing these stories, understanding them. It means recognizing that real celebration, real progress, only comes when every citizen feels safe. When justice isn't just some ideal talked about during a festival, but a daily lived reality for everyone, we have to imagine that society is possible. Because through awareness, through demanding reform, through empathy, change can happen. It has to, if a nation wants to truly live up to the ideals it celebrates.